Something felt off the moment both games ended. Not just the results, the energy, the presence, the impact. Because in one stadium, one player took complete control of the game. Every touch mattered. Every decision created chaos. Every movement changed something. And in another stadium, under even bigger pressure, another superstar simply faded away. Let's start in Barcelona. From the first minute, Raphinha was in T. Just playing, he was dictating everything. You could feel it immediately. The way he positioned himself. The way he demanded the ball. The way Newcastle's defense kept shifting, unsure of where he would appear next. This wasn't just a winger hugging the touchline. This was a player everywhere. Sometimes wide, sometimes central, sometimes dropping deep to build, sometimes arriving late in the box. Unpredictable. Relentless. His first touch under pressure, clean, sharp, always creating space. Newcastle tried to press him early, but every time they stepped forward, he slipped through. One touch, turn, gone. And that's where the damage started. Because once Raphinha escapes pressure, everything opens up. The defensive line stretches. Midfield gaps appear. And suddenly Barcelona isn't just attacking. They're overwhelming. Now look at his flair and magic. This wasn't unnecessary tricks. This was controlled chaos. Little feints, quick body shifts. Perfect timing. He made defenders commit. Then punished them instantly. Not for highlights, but for destruction. Every move had a purpose. Every action led somewhere. And when the game started to accelerate, his football IQ took over. He wasn't reacting. He was anticipating. You could see it in the passes between the lines. The way he found runners before they even made the movement. The way he read defensive mistakes before they happened. That assist to Lewandowski, it wasn't luck. It was vision. A split-second read. A perfectly weighted delivery. A decision made before anyone else on the pitch even understood the situation. That's not just skill. That's control. Now add his pace. Not just speed in a straight line, but explosive acceleration in tight spaces. One step. That's all he needed. Defenders weren't slow. He was just faster in the moments that mattered. And when it came to finishing, he didn't force it. He waited. He kept pushing. Kept pressing. Kept being involved until the moment came. And when it did, he didn't hesitate. Clean. Clinical. Danda goa sante, justa go. It was a statement. I run this game. But here's what separates good performances from elite ones. What happens without the ball. And this is where Raphinha completely destroyed the narrative. Because he didn't disappear after attacking. He hunted. Pressing high. Winning the ball back. Forcing mistakes in dangerous areas. Newcastle couldn't breathe. Every time they tried to build, he was there. Relentless. That's not talent. That's mentality. That's leadership. And you could see it when Newcastle tried to react. For a brief moment, they looked like they might come back. A small spark. A little momentum. And who stepped in? Raphinha demanding the ball again. Slowing things down. Then suddenly accelerating the game exactly when Barcelona needed it. That's control of tempo. That's presence. That's aura. He wasn't just part of the system. He was the system. Now shift the scene. Different stadium. Different pressure. Bigger stakes. Manchester City versus Real Madrid. And all eyes on one name. Haaland, the machine. The finisher. The so-called unstoppable force. But something didn't look right. From early in the game, he felt disconnected. Not just quiet, disconnected. The ball wasn't finding him. Yes, but more importantly, he wasn't finding the game. His first touch under pressure? Almost non-existent. Because he barely had the chance to even show it. And when he did get the ball, it felt rushed heavy. Predictable. Real Madrid didn't panic. They didn't chase him. They controlled him. Rudiger stayed tight. Physical. Aggressive. But smart. Always one step ahead. Always in control of the space Haaland needed. And that exposed something uncomfortable. When the service isn't perfect, what is he do? Because there were moments where City needed more than just a finisher. They needed movement. They needed unpredictability. They needed someone to break structure. And Haaland stayed static, waiting, hoping the ball would arrive exactly where he wanted it. But against Real Madrid, That doesn't happen. Not in games like this. Flair and magic, almost none. No improvisation, no attempt to disrupt, no moments where you felt he could create something out of nothing. And when the chaos increased, his football IQ in those moments became a problem. Because instead of adapting, he disappeared deeper into the system. Less touches, less involvement, less presence. And then came the physical battle. This was supposed to be his advantage. Strength, power, dominance. But instead, he was neutralized. Rudiger didn't just match him. He bullied him, pushed him out of zones, broke his rhythm, made every movement uncomfortable. And slowly, Haaland faded. The pace wasn't a factor. The finishing never arrived. The big moment. When it came, he missed. One of the few chances, one of the only chances. And he didn't take it. That's where the narrative flips. Because when you're that type of player, those moments define everything. And this time, he didn't deliver. As the game went on, something even more concerning appeared. His body language. Head slightly down. Movement slower. Energy lower. It didn't look like frustration. It looked like acceptance. Like the game had already decided his role, and he couldn't change it. And that's the difference. One player imposed himself on the game. The other adapted to the game, and lost. One created chaos. The other got lost inside it. One demanded the spotlight. The other faded from it. And when the final whistle blew, one walked off as the undeniable MVP. The other walked off with questions. Because at this level, it's not just about scoring goals. It's about showing up, taking control, being unavoidable. So now the real question is, who was actually better? Who stepped up and who disappeared? And more importantly, who would you trust in the next game? And this is where things get uncomfortable, because this isn't about one good game versus one bad game. This is about patterns. This is about identity. This is about what happens when the system breaks, and the player has to become the system. Let's go deeper. When Raphinha touched the ball, something happened. Every time. It didn't matter where he received it. Wide, central, deep, final, third. There was always intent, always direction, always danger. That's unpredictability. Not random. Controlled unpredictability. Newcastle couldn't read him. They couldn't settle. They couldn't adjust. Because just when they thought they understood his movement, he changed it. That's what breaks defenses. Now, compare that to Haaland when he touched the ball. Nothing changed. That's the brutal truth. No shift in defensive structure, no panic, no urgency from Real Madrid. It was almost expected, predictable. And that's deadly at this level, because elite defenders don't just react. They anticipate. And if they can anticipate you, you're already defeated before the ball even arrives. Now let's talk about football IQ in chaos. The game against Newcastle became chaotic fast. Goals flying in, space opening, defensive lines breaking. That's where many players lose control. But Raphinha, he thrived in it. He slowed the game when needed. He accelerated when it mattered. He chose the right pass, the right dribble, the right moment to shoot. He wasn't just playing inside the chaos. He was controlling it. That's a different level of intelligence. Meanwhile, in Manchester, the chaos came from pressure, from intensity, from elimination stakes, and that's where Haaland struggled. Because when the structure around him cracked, he didn't adapt. He didn't drop deeper to connect play. He didn't drift wide to create new angles. He didn't change his positioning to escape. Rudiger, he stayed in the same zones. Waiting in big games is dangerous, because the game doesn't wait for you. Now let's go into physical dominance. This should have been Haaland's territory. This is where he's supposed to impose fear, but instead, he was controlled. Outmuscled at times, outpositioned often. Rudiger didn't just defend him, he dominated the duel. And that sends a message. If your main strength can be neutralized, what else do you offer? Now look at Raphinha. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. But his physical engine, relentless. Constant movement. Constant pressure. Constant involvement. He didn't need to overpower defenders. He exhausted them. That's a different kind of dominance. and it's just as effective. Now let's talk about the most important category, big game clutch. Because this is where legacies are built. This is where narratives are decided. This is where excuses disappear. He stepped into the moment. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. Every key phase of the game, he was there, creating, assisting, scoring, pressing, leading. You couldn't remove him from the game. He was everywhere. Now Haaland. This was his stage. Champions League. Real Madrid. High pressure. Global spotlight. And he vanished. Not because City didn't try, but because he didn't impose himself. He didn't demand the ball. He didn't force situations. He didn't create anything out of nothing. And when the one moment arrived, he missed. That's the difference between presence and absence. Now, let's talk about aura, because this is something you can't fake. You either feel it or you don't. With Raphinha, you felt it. From the stands, from the screen, from every Newcastle player trying to track him, there was a sense that something was going to happen every time he got involved. That's aura. That's influence. That's control beyond stats. Now, Haaland, for long stretches of that game, you could forget he was even on the pitch. And that's dangerous for a player at his level, because when your presence disappears, your impact follows. And in games like this, absence is louder than failure. Now let's address the uncomfortable question. Is Haaland too dependent? Because when De Bruyne isn't dictating, when the system isn't perfectly flowing, when the passes aren't arriving exactly where they should, his game shrinks. And that's not what people expect from the best striker in the world. The best don't wait. They adapt. They create. They disrupt. And right now, that's where the doubt begins. Meanwhile, Raphinha showed the opposite. He didn't need perfect conditions. He created them. He adjusted. He moved. He influenced everything around him. He didn't rely on the system. He elevated it. And that's the shift from player to leader, from participant to controller, from talent to presence. So now everything comes down to one thing. Not reputation, not past performances, not hype. But what we just saw, one player dominated every phase of his game. The other struggled to exist inside his. One made the game revolve around him. The other got lost inside it. And that's why this debate is exploding right now. Because it forces a question nobody wants to answer honestly. Are we overrating impact based on goals? Are we ignoring what happens when the goals don't come? And are we finally seeing who truly controls games and who depends on them? So now the real question is, who was actually better? Who stepped up? And who disappeared? And more importantly, who would you trust in the next game?